Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Before we start the podcast, we're going to go have a little look around the houses, don't we? These are my two lovely co-hosts, Severe and Whale.
Howdy, my name's Whale.
It is incredibly uncomfortable after so long of playing ArmA for someone's mouth not to move when they're actually talking.
Sorry. Howdy.
Oh, there, yeah, let's machinima this. Here we go. Severe, give it a little g'day.
Hey, what's up? I'm Severe.
Alright. So Whale's still looting around here. We have the lovely Bad Frag recording studio, rather, over on this house over here. If we want to come on in, as Whale, have you got your hat yet?
I've got my hat.
Nice. Is Vince? Oh, Vince is here this time. There we go. He's on the.
What happened to him the first time?
I don't know. He vanished, but yeah, Vince is here this time. Have a look. He's on the couch.
I love Vince.
All right.
Well, I don't see any rabbit.
What? Oh, is it the client-side rabbit again?
No,
All right,
let's fucking with you.
Are we just leaving the door open?
Get some fresh air in here.
All right. Well, actually, okay, I'm gonna get the door, but I was gonna say, I like how you guys chose the closest seats to me. That way, I can't get either of you in the shot at the same time. Let's move a seat down one.
All right, let me be socially aggressive. 1 second.
Oh, all right, yeah, okay. This is actually good. There we go. I can position it like this. Then here we go. All right.
This works.
This works very well. Right. So, let's take it away. Everyone, welcome to the Bad Frag podcast. This is a limited run ArmA 3 podcast. I'm going to quickly run through the general idea of the podcast before we get into introducing each of the co-hosts and actually getting into the podcast itself. The general topic is, of course, about ArmA, the stories, the community, the units, the missions we make in it, pretty much everything about that. As Whale said, a little less about Altus life, however, just because most of us haven't dipped toes into that in a very long time. And the intended length for a podcast for one of these is about an hour and a half to 2 hours, with 2 hours being the sort of hard limit where we cut it off. And we'll have one of these probably once to twice a month. Look at nice slow run. We're not going to be trying to pump these out every week, and bring on guests and different groups to talk about different elements of ArmA. Now, I say limited run. What that means is I'm intending for about 10 episodes is what we think is about all we can actually do. And then we wrap it up there, and we call it quits. That's the end of the podcast for multiple reasons. One being that I don't enjoy having to oh hey guys, let's start you watching another podcast. It's gonna have 300 episodes by the end of the year, and you're never gonna catch up and all that sort of stuff. And also, I don't think anyone can actually talk about ArmA for 300 episodes, not even us. And we are really able to talk about ArmA. I will Whale in just a moment. I like my co-host is in Twitch chat talking to me.
Okay, sounds good. My name is Whale. You might notice we will stumble over each other just a touch this first podcast as we get used to the fact that one of us is in the States, one of us is in Australia, and the last one is in Europe. The pings are a little crazy, and the conversations might get a little wild here. I have been playing ArmA since about 2015, 2016, at least with organized units. My first experience was ArmA 2 free back in the day, and I didn't think the textures were all that bad. They were okay. I was like, 15, 16? I didn't mind. Either way, I'm excited to be a part of this podcast. I have a lot of thoughts to share, and I think I have about 4,500 hours in this game, so hopefully my monkey brain would have cooked up some conscious thoughts over that time. How about you, Severe?
Hello, I'm Severe. I primarily play with ArmA Finland, and my first touch with ArmA was in 2014. I've been in some other units, currently playing with Coalition as well. My first real touch with any of the ArmA series games was VBS, and I got into it through that. Nowadays, I mostly do TVT stuff with European communities and things like that.
All right, fair, man. That is a weird way to get into ArmA, honestly. I can't give a specific year. I'm Rimmy, rather. Welcome to my own channel. I am the leader of the K-XX, which was sort of born out of me wanting to play ArmA again, and then we called in a bunch of people to play Anti-Stasi, and then we kind of just spiraled from there, and now we're a very big unit, and it's all gotten out of control, and dear God help me. But I started playing ArmA way back when I started back on ArmA 2. I actually had, the problem is I don't know when I played, because I had the disc as a kid, and I don't know when, I have it on Steam, but I actually bought it intentionally years later to play again, because I played it back in the day where you had to install a disc, and boy, mods were something else. So I played from there, and I started to get into Milsim, I think, because of my cousin, and I think this is their name, the 97th Ranger Regiment, I think they were. There's a story there that goes on there. I was a very young boy who got into Milsim, and that was like my first experience with multiplayer, basically. I played a little bit of the sort of, casual multiplayer, and then I got into Milsim as a squeaker, somehow, something I would never allow in my own unit, and carried on from there. So, yeah. I think that wraps it up. Well, you take your hat off.
It's getting a little sweltering in here.
I see. All right, let's
Just a
get
moment
into
ago,
Yeah?
I just heard a jet fly by.
Oh, yeah.
Don't worry about it.
So, yeah, about that. If you have a quick look at the map, it's actually currently under invasion by both NATO and CSAT to the north and south. Alive is currently active. As such, we may just occasionally hear a gun battle in the background as one of my favorite mods is active. This is a nice little ad for Alive. Hello, Alive devs. Hello, Spider. I love you. Mwah. Yeah, this is so we may occasionally have just some random CSAT soldiers rock up and question what we're doing in our little house. And that's why we have Abdul's card over there. It gives us safe passage. All right. Let's get underway. So, Whale, do you want to take us away on the topic first, Mr. Topic Master?
Sure. When Rimmy says Topic Master, I cooked up quite a few ideas for this podcast. In fact, the origins of it was just a quick conversation we had. And Rimmy was like, well, what would someone even say in an ArmA 3 podcast?
Okay.
And I'm like...
We literally brought up an ArmA 3 podcast as a joke. And then Whale posted the topic list, and I was like, oh shit, it's actually pretty fucking good.
I had secretly been keeping ideas for an ArmA 3 podcast. I guess originally it was maybe threads I'd post on r/ArmA. But it also happened to be like a page and a half long, and some of them were decent ideas, so here we are. What we wanted to cover first, now that the introduction of the podcast itself is out of the way, is just for people that might be new to ArmA, or players who aren't super familiar with the concepts of units or missions, just really quick, giving you a quick recap of what the hell we're talking about when we say Cadian XX or Coalition. A unit in ArmA, you think of a guild, a clan, if you're playing Planetside, an outfit. If you're playing EVE Online, a corporation. It's just a large group of players that get together to play. ArmA obviously isn't massively multiplayer, so what we're talking about are scenarios. You think Gary's mod, where you can do anything you want, but it's just for one session? That's basically what we're talking about in ArmA. Somebody makes a mission, usually somebody in-house who's part of a unit makes that mission to be played once by that unit. It's set on a terrain, that's the formal name. You could also just call it a map. And you play out the mission from start to finish, usually you have some objective to do. And when it's a unit, usually most of these missions are approximate to a real-world military scenario. I think that just about sums it up. Yeah.
Oh,
we could go straight into the topics from there.
All right. So, do you want to go straight into what the units are like? You want to discuss our units and sort of go from there? Sort of what we play with?
Sure. It could also just be another part of our player introductions. Talking about the hosts here.
I think the best sort of way to go into it would be to describe our units. The thing with ArmA is, much like any other game, there is different levels. Well, actually, I think almost exceptionally more than any other game, because an outfit in Planetside, no matter what, they're still playing Planetside. You might have some outfits that are very serious and very, very, hard on about the game, and you might have some outfits that are just there to meme around and have fun. But when it comes to ArmA, the outfit itself basically decides the game. So, in case of Severe, obviously he plays TVTs, team versus team, player versus player missions, almost exclusively as far as I'm aware. Whereas we almost exclusively play player versus enemy, or player versus AI, or what we call in ArmA co-op missions. So essentially, the unit itself, rather, decides the game. And it's... Goddamn. Someone just said, what's so interesting on the ceiling? Because Whale is just staring up at it, and Severe is staring up at the ceiling.
I can't move my head, actually. The animation just plays itself.
I think you can actually break out of the animation. There is a way to do that. It was just that made me laugh. Anyway, sorry. So the Cadian XX is my own unit, which we basically built out of playing Anti-Stasi, and then we were like, hey, we want to play some 40k. And then it sort of spiraled from there, and we actually aren't a 40k unit. We just play whatever the hell we want. In fact, we did an entire World War II week where every single day of the week we played a different World War II op. And honestly, I think we played more World War II and more modern stuff than we have 40k. But that's because of a reason that we'll probably get into another topic. Yeah, but so, you go through that, you group up with your missions, and one of the biggest difference between the different units, at least, obviously apart from TVT versus AI, is how serious they are. And that means either, are they just sprinting around in essentially Gary's mod, where they're spawning tanks and spawning jets here and there and jumping around? Or are they...
I wouldn't go so far as to call it Gary's mod, but
that
yeah,
is, I would call that
pretty
Gary's
wacky,
mod.
pretty off the cuff.
I would call if the Zeus is spawning tanks next to you in the middle of the battle, and like you can just jump in and start doing backflips through them. That's Gary's mod armor. All right, that's what I'm calling that. All the way up to people who very much call each other by rank, and you gotta call me sir. You gotta salute every time you see an officer, and they make you go through several hour-long trainings, to longer boot camps than you have in real life in order to be allowed to fire a rocket launcher in a computer game. There is a big sliding scale there. So, Svir, if you want to tell us a little bit about ArmA Finland and your TBT
Sure.
boys.
All right, so ArmA Finland plays other things than just TVTs, obviously, as well, but primarily TVTs. That's been the big interest with our events lately. ArmA Finland, or AFI, was founded in 2013, 2014, around that time. But it is not an outfit or unit in the sense as, let's say, Coalition or KDNXX. ArmA Finland is an open doors community in the sense that a person can, come and play at our games and be a part of our games without actually being a member. And a person gains, quote, membership by effectively hanging around and playing with us frequently. We don't have things like ranks or really trainings in ArmA Finland beyond what we call new player introductions. New player introductions are basically people just get walked through the very basic functions of the game and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, we are a very heavily event biased outfit in the sense that primarily all of our game time comes from large international events that we organize with other Nordic communities or other Finnish communities. We are, I guess you could call us an overarching sort of umbrella organization almost for Finnish communities, but I'm not going to pretend like ArmA Finland is the authority of all things ArmA in Finland.
Yeah, no, and I 100% agree. That's actually a fascinating thing I sort of forgot there, was that we're pretty much the polar opposite, our units. KDNXX is a closed unit that doesn't rely on events. We make our own missions, and we generally play multiple missions a week on our own. And those are still events in a sense, but we would consider them very differently. They're missions that you make, and we have I don't know, anywhere from 30 to 80, 90 players in them. And we'll get into why that's the limit in a while. But we do those like pretty often, and it's not a setup event where we invite people along and we're like, hey guys, we're doing it on this day, we're gonna bring people in and sort of set it all up. That's more like what Coalition does with CCOs and such. And I think probably one of the biggest reasons we don't do that is just because we don't need to. Numbers-wise, we have enough people to run any event we want on our own, and at a certain point, it just becomes ArmA will actually stop us. Like if we invited all of ArmA Finland along for a big game with the KDNXX, the server would just break. Like there's just no way a server's going to fit all of us in at the same time. So
having played with both,
yeah,
with AFI and with KDNXX, I'd say the difference between the signups, the difference between how they run the operations is, when Severe says AFI hosts events, like they are events with months of lead up, literal months of lead up. Sign-ups done that early, and the briefings, which we'll make sure we talk about maybe in another episode, those briefings go on for pages and pages, as you've seen. They are lengthy documents.
Yeah,
That can be pretty intense.
If we wanted to stick on topic, going to the next thing, I suppose I go over the units I'm in, just Coalition, TMTM, KDNXX. I play with AFI. I used to play with UO, and lately I've been going to a few things with, Goon Station 13. They have ArmA too, so I just thought, why not?
Dear God.
Yeah.
All right.
Fucking with me.
There's a variety of playstyles, and that's a category I wanted to bring up. Maybe in another episode entirely, but the topic was going to be, how do you categorize these ArmA units into different groups?
I think
that's definitely
a good
for
thing.
a later time.
No, I think we could get into that, because I think the correct answer is going to be immediately that there is no way to do it, and I think I can summarize my description in one word, pretty much. Well,
you think it's that simple?
Oh, I think it is.
I have so much writing about it that I'd want to do a little more preparation before I go into it.
And everyone has ignored your writing.
I think you're wrong. I think there are ways to categorize them in meaningful ways.
I think that everyone has ignored your writing, because everyone disagrees on what ArmA units should be classified as. People say that we can't call ourselves Milsim because we don't call each other by rank, to which I say, jerk yourself off harder, you fucking larper. It's... I think the easiest way to describe any ArmA unit is literally by using other ArmA units. We are often described as TMTM, but a little bit more competent. Or, like that sort of stuff. We go like, Coalition is like these... Hey, I've played with TMTM, alright? I like those guys, but dear God. Look, there's a lot of stuff like that where I feel the easiest way to describe a unit is just by describing another unit. There's so... the only sort of definitive objective things you can say is like, what games do they play? Is it a TVT? That's why I can easily describe ArmA Finland. Well,
I think just moments ago we went over some actual objective differences between units when we talked about how they do briefings differently, and that could be used to categorize a unit. When you say comparing units only using other units, either as a baseline, just like as a good idea or not, it requires them to know about both those units.
Yes, and I mean that's a truth. That's a problem, and because I for the longest time played in very specific units. I didn't branch out. I didn't know there was World War II units. I didn't know there was things. I just played in the unit my cousin got me in, and we played. It was what it's called, Rangers. It was U.S. Army shooting Taliban in the desert, Operation 97. That on repeat. And not to say that's bad, which is something I'd love to get Monk on here one day. But yeah, it's something that you can definitely go into a lot. I think the reason why I said objective differences is there are certainly objective differences like closed versus open, that sort of stuff. But the thing that matters most to me in an ArmA unit isn't closed versus open. It isn't TVT versus co-op. It's the general vibe, which is, again, a really shitty weasel word to use. General sort of culture of the unit. Like, what do they do? Am I gonna get fucking yelled at for not calling someone by rank? Am I gonna get yelled at for calling someone by rank? The Caden XX is kind of like that, where if you're not, like, if you seriously look at me and say, sir, we're gonna laugh at you. If you're doing it for, like, a roleplay to make people laugh, and it's like a funny, like, oh, sir, I believe something's going wrong over there. Like, we do that all the time. Digby and me call each other sir because we're commissar and, general, that's how we do it. But if you seriously call me sir, like some people do in trainings, which is fucking hilarious when someone comes into the Caden XX training, and they're like, yes, sir. Okay, sir. All right, I've put my radio in, sir. And I'm just like, please stop that. Just don't.
Maybe they're just LARPing Imperial Guardsmen,
No, it's in training, though. It's in like, the team speak, and I'm like, oh, guys, please. Ugh. So, I don't know.
Look, the Guardsman life begins immediately, bro. It doesn't start when you join
You watch too many of the fucking videos. I tell you, though, I think you could take those things you literally just mentioned and turn them into meaningful like, whether they have trainings or not is just one way to put it, instantly. Or whether they have formal ranks. You could I think you can do it. I think it's a hard task, but I think you can categorize units, but this is maybe for a later day.
I think the problem is at the end of the day, you're not going to end up categorizing anything. You're going to end up just describing it directly, because there is so much nuance to every unit. Just slightly different things the way they do, that you are going to end up like, there's not enough broad categories for everything, I think.
So we need a species, we need a genus for units, we need a kingdom.
All right. Let's step on to the next thing, then, I think.
Okay, the formal topics we have for today. That was the intro, by the way, boys. We just got done with that. What we're going to talk about is, first, our favorite roles to play in an ArmA op, and then what got us into ArmA, which we've already touched on, and any notable experiences we had with our first units, and those that are thinking about whether to stick around or not. If you do stick around to the end, we may very well have time for some questions from the audience.
We'll probably
But
we'll
first-
do alerts and questions at the end that way. So this will probably be a little bit
That's
exceptional to the first episode, just to cover any questions that people actually have about the podcast, like how it's going to work, where it's going to go. That stuff will all be handled at the end, and we'll also cover the alerts then. So, I think actually, do we want to like talk a bit about? I think we can cover 3 topics in the hour and a half we've got. Do you want to talk a bit about missions and what we think about like the actual running of missions and how they are handled? Because obviously we already talked about events versus in-house missions. We can discuss.
Sure. If we have extra time, if we do end up having extra time, that topic you just mentioned about missions and AI is broad enough that we could fill 8 hours if we wanted to.
Sure.
Absolutely. If we have time, sure.
All right.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Severe, I think let's get you to take it away. What's your favorite role in an ArmA op?
Leadership, any kind of leadership. I am absolutely dog shit at fighting. I'm absolutely dog shit at operating any kind of vehicle. My place is sitting there with a set of binoculars and a map. That's definitely my thing. I've never been good at FPS games or anything like that. My primary thing is definitely getting players organized and getting them to do things out on the field that make sense, and it's not just a confusing hairball of players shooting at AI or players shooting at other players. I don't think in the past 2 years in ArmA Finland I have played anything but leadership. Maybe a couple of times. I've been like a rifleman or something, but yeah, that's really it. I mean, my preferences in ArmA are shockingly simple. Unfortunately,
I get that perma DM
there.
feel from ArmA, where I've commanded for the last several years, and I've also DM'd for the last 9 years. Yeah,
that's
100%.
absolutely the vibe.
I mean, I think I'll just follow straight on from you because I basically am the same there. I think I'll be even more specific. My favorite role in ArmA is radios. Anything, and I have even literally made, which it's on my channel, I have made a video talking just about how important radios are to ArmA, to video games in general, specifically like to ArmA and like Milsims and such. But I also talk about deceit games like like Trouble in Terror Stunt, those sort of games. I know Trouble in Terror Stunt actually doesn't have radios, but those style of games. Proximity chat in those games is really important. The other one was Space Station 13, and there's another game I'm trying to remember as well. But I sort of go into why I just...
Radio Commander?
I don't know. I don't think so. Radio Commander, because... Okay, the reason why I didn't use Radio Commander, I very much love that game, and that game is great, and I think Sphere, like anyone who likes radios, you should play Radio General and Radio Commander. Those are both 2 very, very good games. The only reason I say I wouldn't say those are radio... Like, they're a different sort of radio to the type I was talking about in the video. I was talking about players and how players can have different experiences in an operation and sort of come together and share them at the end. Like, they're sort of... And it's something, fuck it. I'll get into that in just a second. So I'll go through my role first. Basically, yeah, I enjoy playing radios, whether that's FAC, MFC, leading, mortar fire controller. Sorry, I probably shouldn't. Forward air control, mortar fire controller, leading. I'm platoon leading in a bit. I squad lead all the time. Vehicle leads, anything like that. Anything I get to use radios, I adore. I do still enjoy just playing as a rifleman. Occasionally I'll go down to sort of to marksman or whatever. I'll grab some sort of spot and just vibe around, have some fun. But I do find that obviously harder because at the end of the day, there's only so many people in the unit that can lead the platoon or can lead the company. And I'm going to end up in those positions because, we can't just, let anyone take that. Whereas anyone can take a rifleman spot. So I'm not going to take a spot from someone else when I can be taking the command spot and being more useful in that position. Apart from that, I think that covers my roles. Like, I can't really think of anything else. Like, it's kind of like it's radio and command is up there, and then everything else comes second. Like, I will happily play anything else second. I can't think of anything I actually dislike. No, I
kind of
think...
feel, speaking to that last thing you mentioned about feeling a sense of external responsibility about what roles you decide to take.
Yeah.
Sometimes I prefer GI. I'm not going to go into mine yet. I'm going to let you finish your turn. Yeah. But generally speaking, I prefer GI but end up picking higher roles because I want to guide the op in a good direction, make sure that people have lots of fun, and also sometimes because I'm obligated because, I'm literally running an op for somebody else.
Yeah, I think I can 100% talk to that. I think we'll go into that completely afterwards. I think this is a great topic to go into straight after, about how... you know what? I'll save it because I think it'll spark a few ideas. To quickly sum up what I was going to say about radios, the reason why I adore radios and adore playing a radio person or radio, whatever the role actually is, as long as I have a long range on my back, I'm loving it.
Do you feel connected?
I feel connected, and that's sort of the whole hypothesis of my video of why radios are so good. It's essentially that we all are playing the same game, right? We're all playing the same mission, we're all in the same server, and yet at the end of the game, we all jump into a TS channel like we are right now, and we talk about that game. Like, we all just played the same game, and yet here we are talking about the game as if we hadn't been there. Like, oh, man, I was over in that town, and, like, we had this tank, like, run into our barricade and flip and explode. That was hilarious. And because I wasn't in that town, I never got to hear that. I never got to see that. Radios are a way of, in the mission, connecting those experiences together. And that I go into detail on that in the video. And basically how, during the mission, I can hear an explosion in the distance and be like, oh shit, what's that? Without a radio, I'll just be like, oh shit, what's that? With a radio, I go, hey Alpha, I just heard an explosion from your way. What happens? And then Alpha gets on net, he's like, oh, help us, we've hit a mine, we're all mass-cas, help. And that's a fascinating story. I've gotten a window into something else happening. I've gotten a window into a different movie, a different story that's going on the same battlefield. And I find that absolutely fascinating. And that's exactly why I love radios. So, it's a lovely little rant. Well, take it away, and I can carry on with my.
I feel that a little bit of wanting to be a part of everything, I'd say my favorite role in an ArmA op. I see a lot of friends that jump on a jet the second the slot opens up. I see a lot of buddies who like grabbing a tank because it's a big force multiplier, and you mostly, if you're in a tank, don't have to deal with the whole dying thing that happens to infantry a lot.
I don't know how, but we keep losing our tanks in our ops. Like, I need to teach my guys that they are a tank, and they are the longest range thing on the fucking battlefield. Anyway,
are they 40k ops you're talking about?
Okay, no, it was most recent was Napa, where we lost our T-34 on the second objective, and we're just like, fuck. But then we stole a T-72.
It was the only tank though, right?
Yeah, it was one tank, and also there was no respawns. But so the crew was without a tank for like a little bit of the op, and then we stole a T-72 for them. That op is actually it's a fuster clock coming quite soon. I've just finished editing it. It's very, very, very funny.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
A lot of people take those force multipliers, but speaking to what you just said about having a fuller experience of the op, getting to touch on more, I just like being at the front lines, which is why if I have it my way, the highest role I take, contrary to Severe wanting to be in a leadership role, is squad leader. I generally don't go above that because otherwise it feels a little more RTS-y and a little less direct, impactful leadership. I could plan things out ahead of time, I could draw a beautiful thing on the map, but the actual execution is going to come down to squad leaders and below, and that's why I like being right there. So it could be a rifleman, a marksman, probably not a marksman actually, an anti-tank, auto rifle, but as long as I'm there, that's what feels good. Being part of the core experience of the op, which in ArmA is almost always general infantry.
Yeah. I think I'll disagree slightly there on one thing, which is that, and this is something that Digby would definitely back me up on, is that commanders shouldn't be way back in the back looking at a map all the time. Like, I know, and I severe we said earlier, binoculars and map, and I do love looking at a binocs and map, but the binocs part is the important part. You need to be in visual sight of your men at all times, and that's something, especially when it comes down to platoon leads, you should be with your leads at all times, and company lead, I should only be a few steps back. There are a lot of operations, a lot of games where, especially World War II and limited communication operations, where not everyone has radios. In those operations, I am up at the front as company command giving orders in person. Like, you guys get over there, you guys do that, you do this, because I'm going around and giving special orders and such. I mean, even then, I would argue there's a reason to do that in ops with radios, because a person me in person saying, hey, stop hiding behind this house and get to the next trench line, you bastards, like, get moving, pushing someone on, is a far more immediate thing that they're going to do that, as opposed to hey, command told the platoon lead to tell the squad lead to tell you guys that you need to move forwards at some point. You know, there's a heavy difference there.
Yeah, I feel that. I mean, when I say maps and binoculars, don't think for a second that I don't like to, or rather, I like to sit back there in a tent somewhere while the rest of my guys are out there doing something.
Back in a mansion in Paris, yeah?
I'm communicating with them by cell phone and be like, yeah, guys, just go out there and do the objective while I hang out and watch porn. That's not how I play ArmA, but I do like getting stuck in, so to say, even as a company commander. I rarely play platoon lead. I'm usually doing company commander stuff because ArmA Finland's big events have that quantity of players where we can have those types of structures. I definitely agree that it's when you're playing the game, it's worth playing it for the entire experience. And I feel like if you're way back somewhere, it's that cheapens it.
I mean,
Well,
look, I like. Oh, go.
No, you go ahead, Rimmy.
I was just saying, I like seeing my fire support land on the enemy's heads.
Who doesn't, though? Like, who doesn't? That's inherently satisfying.
Oh yeah.
There's definitely something to be said about having your plan, your execution go through well. That's an experience in and of itself. But
oh yeah,
being general infantry, I don't think, generally speaking, a company command is going to be far up enough to experience that heat of battle. And it's just something you're not always going to get above squad lead, which is why I stick down low.
I think definitely you get more heat of battle, but I disagree heavily. I'm as company lead, I'm often in the thick of battle. Either I'm giving orders or I'm shoring up positions that need help with my medic, with my whatever my spare guy is, with my 2IC. I'm telling him like 2IC, those guys have lost their lead. Get over there, get them reorganized, get them back into a fighting formation, sort of thing. Or there's other times where I think if you've made a good operation, where company command will get targeted by Lamb's AI. Sponsored by Lamb's AI. No, so one of
lots of free plugs.
Yeah, one of my favorite operations was Operation Codependency. Basically, simple little armor it's a 40k operation. Sorry, it was me and Digby, and I can't remember who else. It was it's called Pack of Man. I don't know what I was trying to say. I was trying to say Pool of Man. Anyway, so it was Pack of Man, and we were like the little command squad, right? And we just sent off our squad to go attack another hill. We're like, okay, there's an enemy position over there. Go off. Over you go. And we just sat there, and then bullets start landing around us, and we're like, what the fuck is this area? This area was clear. What the fuck? Why are we getting shot at? That's weird. And then they start getting close. I'm like, oh, we're getting shot at. And so I hit the deck, and I'm like, wait, we're taking fire. And I put out a call. And what had happened, we ended up turning and facing, and this squad had come up behind us. What it was Lamb's Creep, which has a specific AI pattern where they will crawl on their bellies towards you and ambush you, and will like set up an ambush and then unload fire on you all at once. And it was fucking phenomenal to because that was something I'd expect players to do. For us, company command on a hill in the rear lines to suddenly get ambushed was fucking amazing. It was seriously fun. Yeah, I think that's. I think we've covered pretty much what I was going to say through there.
That's fair. And you say, you're getting a direct line of leadership, and you're right up there at the front or around it, which is it's prudent to be there because you get direct observation on your units. You don't always have to ask what's going on and go through the game of telephone finding out what they're actually trying to say if you're just there. Now, it might be a little less safe, but you can keep yourself alive. You've been playing ArmA for 3,000 hours. You know how to dodge a bullet once in a while. But I think the low-level leadership, the little microing of teams, the AR, making sure the assistant auto rifle is spotting for him, stuff like that is what I'm talking about when I say that direct lower-level leadership that you don't always get.
Yeah, no,
because if you're company command, you just don't have time.
I mean,
you don't have time, and you don't have the elements in your squad itself. Like your command squad is always going to be very small. Go on, Sphere. Sorry.
As company command, it's exactly sort of like Whale said, is that you don't get that direct lower level leadership, but I mean, you see it happen if you're close enough to your guys. So that kind of counts for me. But when Whale, you said that you like to be in there in the shit. The way I describe it from the company commander's perspective is that the shit feels different.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
Company just hit different though.
Company hits different.
That's basically how it is.
I mean, I think one of the things I can best describe as ArmA is a lot of ArmA is second-hand enjoyment, or what's like it's almost there's got to be a better term.
Schadenfreude.
Isn't that taking joy in others' misery?
Yes.
That's not what I meant, but no, I'm saying like one of the things that fascinates me most about ArmA is, and this is something that I've recently started doing. I told you about the other week. I've seriously expanded and started using Drongo's air operations quite extensively, and that mod is amazing. A very, very, very good mod. What it basically does is it makes it. This is something that you may not know if you've never played ArmA. In vanilla, ArmA's AI is good at tanks. You know, it knows how to use them. It's good at vehicles. It's good at infantry. It's good at statics. Okay, all right. It's functional. It's
Good,
okay at helicopters, and it is absolutely awful at jets. It just doesn't know how to, like the AI just doesn't know how to use jets without being scripted specifically how to do a gun run. Like, you know, all the gun runs and shit you see in the campaign and stuff are scripted. They're all like set up by a module or by a specific call-in script. Same with artillery. So Drongo's air operations, what it does is it basically changes it so the AI knows how jets work, and it's so fucking impressive. They will actually strafe your positions when they get called in. They will drop bombs on you. They will, you know, shoot missiles at your guys. They will dogfight and have air fights and stuff. And so I've started seriously expanding our operations because that adds a whole other element. You know, we've got tanks, we've got infantry, and then we've also got people flying around in the sky having a separate battle. And what I say the secondhand enjoyment is as company command, sometimes it's so much fun to just stand there and look up at the sky as our jets dogfight, or as our planes dogfight the enemy's planes. And we just
Severe, didn't you have a name for enjoying the large scale of an operation?
Oh my god, yes,
Right.
he did.
Big warfields.
Big warfields. That's it. So yeah, that's 100%. It's big warfields where you sit back and you just watch your own planes. And like, I'm not doing anything. I say that I often shoot down planes myself, but I'm not doing anything directly to these two. I'm not even giving them orders. I'm not directly involved. You know, I'm just looking at these jets dogfight each other, and I'm like, damn, that's really cool. That's really cool. Like, I'm getting secondhand fun from watching the guy who's having loads of fun dogfighting.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Honestly, I feel the same way as squad leader, or, you know, frequently I talked about a sense of responsibility. I do slot those company command slots even, and I do get those big war fields. I feel like the boots on the ground get the same deal. They see an airstrike coming down, you know they want to watch. You know they want to watch.
And I will say there is a certain nicety to being a boots on the ground guy who doesn't know everything. Because when an airstrike lands, you didn't know it was called in. You're just like, oh shit, airstrike. Oh, that was amazing. You know, it just comes out of nowhere.
I mean, yeah, the experience obviously is fundamentally different for people who play, you know, as an infantryman or whatever in a squad level.
Yeah.
You're not gonna know when everything's happening. Kind of, you know, wraps around into what I was talking about with company hitting different, but you know, that's almost an entirely different subject of its own. When it comes to like big warfields, though, it's like there's nothing quite like, you know, putting together a plan. You know, making an example of ArmA Finland here. You know, you put together a plan about a week before the event or whatever, disseminate it to all of your subordinates, and then, you know, you have everybody get together, you know, the night of the event or whatever, and actually go and play and execute it. And, you know, stuff like your pre-planned indirect fires come in just, you know, when you want them to, and everything else, and you get your guys going forward and you actually see it happen. That's big warfields. Like,
yeah.
Actually seeing like a company move.
I can 100% agree there. Like, I that's one of the things I personally, I played some Friday Night Fights a little while ago. Personally, one of the things I didn't like as much about Friday Night Fights, and kind of why I've turned off from them, was that I didn't get that big war feels in Friday Night Fights, where I like, okay, in the first one I kind of did, but it was kind of just accepted there. They were like, oh, you know, it just turns to chaos. It just happens, you know, that happens in every mission. Way it turns into, you know, just basically the last 20 guys, you know, what's called bloody TVTing each other in a town. And to me, that's not why I play ArmA. I quickly realized...
It's Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, I quickly realized that if I want to do that, I'm just going to play Squad. I'm going to go play Postscriptum. I'm going to go play I'm going to play any other shooter game which does multiplayer shooting significantly better than ArmA does. Because ArmA has some real big issues when it comes to TVTs to me. Like as in a man-to-man sort of situation. That's my problem. Like, Whale, you posted that clip the other day of the tops versus bottom TVT, where you walk into a room...
I'm not going to say the title in full, but yes.
Yeah, you walk into a room, you get sprayed by bullets, and you just kill like 3 guys. Because you don't die for some reason. Like, that was bullshit. That was bullshit through and through. And, like, that's kind of why I was looking at ArmA TVTs and, like, you know, as for me, the enjoyment comes from the overall feel, not the small scale, like, little battles. Where I think you're actually
CQC is always going to be wacky in ArmA 3. It's always going to be wild. When I go up there, even if all those little shots, and I won't go too into the clip if I'm not going to link it, but long story short,
I can show it
if they're mostly body shots, that's okay. But either way, in these ArmA CQC engagements you're going to have, there's going to be a lot of trades near the end where you just headshot somebody and they have half a second to headshot you because the connection hasn't registered anything yet. ArmA just not a very good game for competitive TVTs. And I think Friday Night Fights found that out the hard way a few years ago when they were doing shoutcasts more actively. It died down after a bit because sometimes stuff just got cheap near the end of the operations when it really did turn into Lord of the Flies. Nowadays they invite units to have some TVT fun. It's not terrible. Yeah, Lord of the Fries is America, sorry.
Yeah, I 100% agree there. Like, there is... Like, I get sort of going the fun stuff, yeah, sure, but to me, they were a little too long and a little too serious. Like, they were in the wrong middle ground for me, I think. Either, I find Severe's, like, the ArmA Finland stuff, I find that fascinating to look at, because I think that big scale, actually organized, and, you know, everyone knows what they're doing TVT, fascinating. I think that's great. And at the other end, I think the one we used to play with ArmA Community with Boone and who else was it? Well, you actually know them. I can't remember the streamers' names.
It was Lawman, Tucson Boone, and a few of their friends. But yeah, those are silly. It's the other. It's the opposite.
It was the opposite end. It was silly. So it was like, all right, 20-minute TVT, bish bash bosh. You know, we run up here. You know, you're Soviets charging a trench line. Go. And you know, that's just it. That was fun because I was Soviet charging a trench line. I died. Great. Next TVT. You know, fucking Hotel Hostiago. Go, boom, dark
you got
business,
it right
repeat.
the first time.
No,
Hostiago.
No, it's
Hotel Hostiago.
No, it's Hotel Hostiago.
I do want to interject about you said that everybody in the TVT knows what they're doing, but I wouldn't quite say that. I mean, we are ArmA Finland after all. So.
Fair. But at least you're attempting to know what you're doing. I don't know. It's just
attempting. Attempting is the correct word. Yeah.
And I definitely there's more to go into there. Do we want to go into? I feel. Do you want to save discussion of like TVTs versus co-op for another day, or maybe the end of the podcast if we still have time? Because that's something I could go into.
That is a long topic, and I know Severe himself has a lot to say about that. ArmA Finland has a history with this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I feel like let's kick on
long and storied history
to the next few. So one thing I was gonna say when we're talking about our favorite roles, and I think Severe, I don't know if you, well, maybe you will. I don't know. I think you might have a different feeling on this for me. So when I'm leading a sort of anything, I think platoon and above in ArmA, you are, by definition, a dungeon master or a game master of a tabletop game. Like as in, so for a platoon lead in ArmA, for a company lead in ArmA, when you are in that sort of scale, I don't think squad leads necessarily are. I think they are just, your job is to be as efficient as possible, kill the enemy, win the day. Congratulations, you're a squad lead. I think platoon lead and up, your job is to be a DM and dungeon master, right? So the thing there, the reason why I say that is, yes, you are technically trying to win. Yes, you are technically commanding the force. You know, people say it's I don't know, you're an RTS or you're a radio commander or whatever, like, you know, like that sort of games. Yeah, no, that's okay. Actually, anyone who treats ArmA like an RTS, like actually like an RTS, can go jump, because ArmA is not an RTS. You need to remember that players are not AI. You cannot tell them specifically where you need them to go. You need to remember you're working with actual human beings, and you need to like actually tell them proper things. Like that's why I hate Blue Force Tracker. That's something I'll go into another day. Is like I hate fucking commanders who stare at their map like fucking, I'm in my map right now, like, oh, hang on, Bravo's one town over, one house over from where I said they should be. Bravo, I need you to move to that house, not that house. It's like,
dear God.
Yeah, that
Fuck
shit.
EFD, by the way.
That shit drives me up the fucking wall. By the way, where? let me circle where we actually are. There's a recording studio. Here we go, recording studio. Yeah, so that shit, like, I agree. Like, as a basic summary, ArmA command is an RTS. Sure, yeah. But people who actually play it like that drive me up the wall. It's like you need to realize you do not have fine control over your troops. I hate you, Whale. So check the map. He's done something dumb. Anyway,
What the fuck?
He's put Blue Force tracker.
Yeah, I see.
So yeah, you need to realize you don't have direct control over your troops. You are working with human beings, not dumb AI who you can right click on. But the reason why
furthermore, those humans, they're not gonna run into a BTR if you tell them to.
Yeah,
they're also gonna,
or they will if you don't want them to.
Like when push comes to shove, the orders come behind their self-preservation sometimes, especially if it's a low respawn op. You're gonna find people like, a TVT player throwing a co-op especially is gonna start looking for their own ass after a while.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree there. So the reason why this is summing all that up. The reason why I still say that I think that they are essentially DMs and dungeon masters, game masters, maybe why Seville will disagree with me, is that their job is also to to curate the experience for the players. Yes, the Zeus does that as well, but we often don't play with a Zeus. And I think if you need a Zeus, your ops are crap and need better designing. And that's an entirely different topic. But basically, one of the biggest things that a company commander and a platoon leader needs to be doing is recognizing that they are responsible for the fun of 30 plus players. So platoon, you've got 3 squads, that's 30 guys that you need to ensure are having fun. Company command, you're responsible for 80, 90. One up, we had 110 guys and I wanted to die. So you need to realize that you are responsible for these things, because what that actually means in the end is what is most efficient is often not what I choose. So, especially if you're already winning the operation, what I'm talking about there is, let's say I'm platoon commander, right? For the last 3 objectives, I've always sent Alpha in first. And Alpha has cleared the town, done the CQC, killed most of the enemies, whilst Bravo covered them. Right? We get to this 4th town, and Alpha is in position to move in and CQC the town. But I tell them, Alpha, hold position, don't go into the town. Even though it's the logical thing for them to go into the town. And I say instead, Bravo, go into the town. Because what I'm doing there is, at the end of the day, it's not like I'm destroying my own game. I'm not literally killing my if it was, life or death, I would send Alpha in, obviously. If we were down to no respawns, every life was precious, I'm sending Alpha in. But if it's not that, I'm going to send Bravo in, because what I'm doing there is sort of realizing that, hey, Bravo spent the entire operation sitting on hills looking at Alpha have fun. It's Bravo's turn to have fun,
Absolutely.
And one of the things I could sort of describe once, we had 2 platoon leads who were looking at platoon command. One of them was very good at that side of the job. He understood the DM side. He just sucked at the technical side. He was just very bad at the actual knowing how to command and win an operation side. So he didn't get platoon command. The other platoon command was very, very good at the platoon command side. They were very good at being a platoon command and actually winning an operation. The problem was they had absolutely no self-awareness of the fact that they needed to stop. They needed, because what they were doing...
winning versus playing,
Yeah, winning versus playing, and it's exactly it. They were basically going ahead of the other platoons, without orders, and killing all of the enemies before anyone else showed up. And then pushing on ahead, and then pushing on ahead. And we're just like, you need to stop, because there is 60 other players right now who are having a fucking awful time. Like, to the point where the players actually protested when they reached the town. They said, we're done with the operation if this platoon keeps acting like that. Because we have walked through 3 empty towns now because they keep running ahead and without orders killing everything and taking our job because, and you know what, they're having success, sure, but they're ruining the fun of 60 other people. Sphere, I want to ask you about that. Do you agree with that at all? Do you agree that there is that sort of Because obviously I think when it comes to TVTs, that dynamic completely shifts on its head, because I
Right,
don't think
so-
I don't think I would ever open up a weakness when I'm facing players.
That's what I was gonna get into. In co-ops, sure. As a company commander, you're responsible for your players' experiences. When you're playing against AI, it's everybody's kind of just if they're attending a big co-op event or whatever, folks want to get some sugar time in, and that's cool. That's fine. And in that sort of circumstance, I feel like you've got a lot more maneuverability when it comes to, cycling your guys out, who gets to fight right now, stuff like that. And obviously that would be something that you would do in TBT games as well when one of your units becomes depleted, stuff like that. But in TBT games, I don't consider myself a DM. I look at it from the perspective of I'm here to play against my opponent. He's here for the same reasons that I am, and that is to win the game. And sometimes that means that the guys who get stuck on the flank of the company, they might not see a whole lot of action, especially if they're part of, let's say, like a supporting element, like a reconnaissance outfit or whatever. But that problem really can be fixed with things like creating the expectation that you might not see a whole lot of shooting if you're playing those reconnaissance roles.
I was going to say, like, you sign up for that,
Yeah, your primary role is observation.
Reconnaissance 100%. We actually have our scout tags. One of the things we teach in our scout trainings, if you start shooting at the enemies and engaging them, you fail your training, because that's not your job. So let's go on.
Going back to like the thing though is that when I play TVTs, I'm always looking to win, and that might sound cheap at first glance, because obviously you play the game for the experience as well. But to make an example again of a domestic game in ArmA Finland, our TVTs are typically offset. Like they're offset in the sense that defenders and attackers are not equal. Whale is familiar with what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Attackers usually have a 3-to-1 advantage in numbers and equipment. So typically, if I was to make an example of myself playing as defender, I wouldn't pull any punches. I'd pull out all the stops to make sure that my guys stood a reasonable chance at winning, regardless of what that actually means in regards to the general player's experience on the other side, for example. So if the other side walks into a landmine and dies, that's not a very cool ArmA experience, right?
Yeah,
But
that's actually something I was
TVTs
going to mention. Yeah.
But in TVTs, it's like the entire point is to have this kind of massive force-on-force clash where these two sides, come to blows, and it is just as much individual players competing in their particular own role, like playing as part of the team to achieve that objective, as it is company commanders or platoon commanders, throwing punches by maneuvering their guys and trying to eke out the tactical advantage in a scenario. So maybe I'm more competitive in that sense, but I'm not going to say that the DM approach to things is wrong, because it's not. It has a time and place. It's just that in TVT games, like what I'm used to, you don't get to see that a whole lot.
Yeah. I know, I 100% agree there. Like, there is, when respawns run out, my it's time to win brain turns on. I'm like, all right, fuck this shit. We need to abuse the fuck out of this game. We need to just stay at range. We need to fucking plaster towns with Artie. We're not fucking around anymore, because if we do lose guys, they're gone for good now, right? At that point. I will quickly I'll hand that question over to you, Whale. I do want to hear your thoughts on this, but one thing I'm just going to quickly question. So yeah, I think this is a topic we could go into in detail. It's just one thing I wonder. Why is it... weird thing I'm going to say here is, like, I think that, honestly, often attackers in TVTs, or at least in ArmA, have an advantage, have quite a big advantage, and that is that they get to choose where the fight happens. and they get to throw all their force at that line, defeat and detail. They get to, the defender's got to defend 3 objectives, well, the attacker goes my entire force onto 1 objective sort of thing, and just destroys that. Is there any way that AFI sort of prevents that, or do you fight in like a limited area so the attacker can't just go around in massive, crazy... Huh? So it's limited?
To an extent. So I'll explain. So
Okay,
in
yep.
AFI TVTs, obviously I've already gone over ad nauseum that we do like big scenarios.
Yeah.
Player counts anywhere from between 90 to I think our maximum was something like 150. So how it works is that the attacker is given a frame, an area through which they must attack. Like it should be, or it typically is 2 to 3 kilometers wide at maximum, but typically it is 1 to 1.5 kilometers wide and usually 2 or 3 kilometers deep. And that simulates the area of responsibility assigned by the battalion tactical group.
Yeah, by the upper higher ups. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, right.
Do you feel like...
Good.
I don't mean to interrupt, but the player counts that you have for the defenders, could they cover that whole area with at least some efficacy?
No. The way it's typically designed is that the defender always has to maneuver as well in order to bring up the most effective defense.
Which goes into reserves, which I really, really like those actually having to be an effective thing.
Right, and it also goes into effective use of maneuvering. And reconnaissance and observation, all these things, and to combine into what I would call a defensible situational picture. And that creates the opportunity for the defense to start creating casualty-causing circumstances to the enemy. But, that's almost a whole different lecture.
Whole thing, yeah.
But
go on.
The way I describe it is that no, defenders cannot form a cohesive line across the entire map and try and hold that ground, because then they are easy to defeat when the enemy company, which is typically, first of all, 3 times their size and usually more concentrated than they are, because they don't have to worry about such a thing as, we don't know where the enemy is attacking from. So the attacking company is always going to be more concentrated. They're going to focus on punching a hole with a platoon-sized force, and then they're going to pour the rest of their guys in through that hole that they formed, and then start rolling the defenders flank back. And that's how it usually works in AFI games.
Yeah, that's really what I wanted to say there is... So one thing, Whale, I don't know, were you there for the NA? Yeah, you were. So one of the things with FNF that I had a bit of a not so fun time with was the first operation was actually very limited. So we had a very limited scope. And I think it was actually like a kilometer. That was it. Was all we had. Probably a little less. And honestly, that worked pretty well. We thought we were in for a shit show and we were going to get destroyed. We didn't have a massive numbers advantage at all. Somehow we won, which is still one of the happiest things that we did. And we sort of, to contrast that operation, which was the first one, with the third one, which was there was absolutely no limits in pre-Cymru lock, so the jungle map. The attackers could approach from any direction in a jungle. And that last mission was fucking dreadful. It was literally just like the attackers could pick any direction in this completely impenetrable to see through jungle terrain to approach from in force with everything they wanted. And it was, we had to try and pull a 360 defense with 2 squads in jungle.
They came in from, across the river. They suppressed us instantly. Our HMG installation went down in the first 5-6 seconds because I was running it. I know that.
Yeah, it was painful. It was not fun. And that's I 100% agree that sort of the limitation on approach means that attacker's advantage is not necessarily gone, but massively limited.
It's a difference in knowledge. You got difference in force count, you got difference sometimes in armament, and this one is difference in knowledge.
The knowledge of where they're coming from. They have to come from the south. Massively improves how well you can defend, or at least how well you can plan a defense, sort of thing.
Right. So I want to quickly expand on kind of why we play that way, though.
Yeah, go on.
So AFI, when people think ArmA, typically when they think of an outfit, they think milsim, right? But AFI doesn't really have commonalities with other Milsim communities in ArmA. We don't have ranks, we don't really have specialized trainings or anything like that. But AFI consists of a community of what I would call wargamers. And to wargamers, it's this setting where the attacking area is limited, the area of responsibility is limited. That's the very basic setting for pretty much every war game ever. Tabletop war games, computer war games, anything, you name it. That's the basic starting point for any attack or defense, because in a war you don't just have that one company and the other company duking it out on a big map, making basically maneuver turns against each other, spinning around like a tornado. That's not how it works. There's other elements there.
No, that he is 100% right. Like in modern warfare, at least, it's not like we're not in Napoleonic days. We're not formed up into a single group of armies. There is a front line, and that is something that ArmA kind of sucks at simulating, and you kind of have to force it. You kind of have to tell people, hey, don't just go climb a mountain because there is a front line. So technically, there'd be enemies in that mountain, sort of thing. I mean,
that's why the area of operations is limited, to create that type of illusion. Okay, well, you are one company, there's other companies behind you, and there's other, like, let's say, battalion level units somewhere out there, and they're
which
doing
I would say is 100% why I love Alive, because Alive simulates that 100%.
Right, and it comes down to what I told you earlier, big war fields.
Yes. So that was to quickly. Oh fuck. Okay, we're getting. All right, hang on. Before we go off on that, because we can go off a separate topic. Whale, can you hit it with two things? First of all, whatever you feel about this, and secondly, your DM as commander thing, because we have a danger of running away from the topic that I was saying.
Technically, we're still supposed to be on your favorite roles to play in an ArmA, but I guess it's tangentially related to this whole.
I mean, we still got like an hour left, so
DM versus platoon commander kind of thing.
Yeah. So what do you think about those two?
Well, I'd say if I had to, speaking of categories, I'd call Severe is seeming like he's one of the winner types, and he's explained why that's totally fine.
Yeah, I'm not saying like I disagree with him. Like if I was playing TVTs exclusively, I would be like Severe, but I play a lot of co-op, so I'm.
At the very least, people know what they're signing up for. That's
right.
Yeah.
But both approaches are completely valid.
I think though, if you use them in the opposite ways, that would be very dumb. If I tried to play a TVT like I play co-op, and you tried to play a co-op like you play TVT, no one would have fun. It would be very dumb.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with that. There's a time and a place for this. I feel like there are tools in your toolbox, but this screwdriver isn't going to screw in every screw.
Exactly.
All right. Well.
Anyways, going back to my personal thoughts and how I generally play. I naturally, being in as many units as I am, I definitely flex and use these tools in my toolkit as they come. With the KD XX, I usually actually find myself taking things more seriously because this is an operation that people signed up for ahead of time. Not as ahead of time as AFI, where I would go full tryhard mode. I am a soldier on the battlefield. This is Red Orchestra with radios, and I need to fight for my life and the life of my squad mates. But KD XX is a little more on the serious side compared to me going to an operation with TMTM twice a week, where the operations are commonly replays and half the time honestly broken. That, at TMTM, is 100% fun mode. I am playing, there is some winning involved, but usually it's just coincidental.
Does the brokenness add
I am
the
there to
experience?
play. I'm there to play and have fun, and if I didn't play to have fun, I probably wouldn't have any fun, which is why it's important to make it that TMTM op still fun and being kind of a social event. I come by, I talk to some friends I've had for years, we get to play some target practice. Sometimes the op breaks, but it's a shrug. Hey, haha, it's pretty funny. The server froze up or something. And I'm not being sarcastic there. It is actually, just kind of a fun experience to hang out with your friends for a few hours. I usually prioritize when I'm a leader, and I will let you talk in just a brief moment. While I'm at TMTM, the priority is most definitely on making sure people are having fun. So there will be no real optimization of having Bravo move out front because they tend to be good at that or because they're in position. People will wait a little bit. I'll make sure everybody gets some even contact. And if I'm a squad leader, which is what I commonly am, I'm very much looking out for the fun of the people beneath me rather than maybe using them as a tool to win the op.
Yeah. One thing I was going to say there is, one thing I touched on the radio video was how I actually don't, like, okay, it's kind of weird to describe this. I do and I don't. ArmA is, in a sense, like VR chat, in that you'll, like, run into someone and be like, oh shit, hey Max, so how you doing? And you just, like, chat to him for a bit, like, in the middle of a battlefield. Or you'll run into to Whale and, like, have a little chat with him while you're fighting off some guys, or while you're sitting in a trench together or
You
whatever.
attempt to, but I can't hear anything.
Yeah, Whale can never hear anything. Well, actually, we can all hear Whale, though. But, like, that sort of situation is fascinating to me. I adore that. That is why I love radios. You know, those sort of situational things. It's like when you're playing paintball and you just happen to end up in cover behind your mate. And you're like, oh shit, g'day mate, how you doing? And, you know, you fucking have a little chat and then you run out and you get shot and you die. You know, like that sort of shit's like a good laugh. But I will say, the reason why I tend to not play ArmA for fun or purely for fun is that the sort of a point I made in the video where ArmA is a lot more isolating than other games. You can't just relax and talk about your weekend with your mates, like, you know, with your 4 mates, because you're in an operation with a bunch of people. And you also aren't able to constantly talk to people because, you know, if they move away from you, you can stop hearing them. Whereas if we're playing, like, World War Z together, you know, we're just killing zombies and chatting. You know, that's a different style of game. And that's perhaps why I tend to go for more serious ArmA stuff as opposed to just silly fun stuff all the time. Oh, yeah. There's a little story about Alive, sort of the big Warfields thing, Sphere, which is why I adore Alive. We're doing basically a test operation for Alive. And there was this, so there's a system in Alive where after a certain number of casualties have been have been taken by the enemy, by either side rather, reinforcements start to arrive, and that sort of gets adjusted as the game goes on. And we were fighting through this town, fighting through, and then all of a sudden the enemy's reinforcement wave arrived. Like, we were winning, everything was going fine, and then suddenly it was just the counterattack of a fucking lifetime. It was beautiful. We had CSAT helicopters going overhead, we had jets dueling overhead as their jets got replenished.
Oh, man.
Transport helicopters, one of the funniest things we've ever seen. There's the Tarus, I think they are. They were sling loading transport trucks full of CSAT soldiers, with CSAT soldiers in the transport trucks being sling loaded. And so we were shooting these fucking helicopters down with our AT launchers because that's all we had. And we watched as these transport trucks would, you know, get released from their cables and, oh god, I bumped my mouse, and just go dive head first into the bloody Altus terrain as they crashed down from the sky, because they were trying to go to another front and they were just flying overhead. And so we had this big Warfield moment where it was just this chaotic battlefield where suddenly we were just like a group of fucking guys in the middle of a massive enemy, like, company-sized counterattack across a whole front. And it was absolutely fascinating to watch. It was, like, that shit is what I live for in ArmA. That was so much fun.
To describe a similar circumstance, Whale was actually there for this.
Oh, yeah?
Couple of weeks back, we played a AFI event called Brothers on Opposing Sides, and I was the defending platoon commander. And the circumstances were basically as such: mechanized platoon versus mechanized company. And when I say mechanized, I actually mean motorized, because M113s on the defending side. And,
fucking just pieces of shit. I hate them. Go on, yeah.
The attackers had MTLBs and also Vodniks, so they were kind of a mech-mot mix per platoon. But there were more than us, or rather, there were more than them than there were of us, and the terrain heavily favored the attacker. And that was probably like my most favorite Big Warfields moment in recent times, was when we'd lost most of our vehicles, our maneuverability. My platoon's maneuverability was shot. The enemy was still attacking. I'd lost about a squad of guys at this point, but most of my platoon, unbeknownst to me, I didn't actually know that most of my platoon was still alive. I'd lost most of my leadership. I'd lost my squad leaders, so they weren't communicating. But I'd made a plan where the guys would withdraw into hedgehog defense at the objective, when shit really hit the fan. And that's exactly what happened. We pulled the platoon into a tiny little compound, probably only maybe 50 or 60 meters across, and big 2-story building, lots of windows. And Whale was present at that, and this numerically superior enemy, which at that point had only sustained light casualties. I think, how many men did they have at the point that they attacked that compound?
We were still, well, the thing is, we were still 3/4 strong, but the 1/4 that was gone was all of our leadership except one platoon.
Right. Except,
Not
and
very good at
I was
keeping
the,
themselves
I
alive
was
that up.
the, I was the only platoon level leader remaining.
And Severe was defending and I was attacking, just for some perspective here.
Wait, weren't you on the defending side?
You're talking about Op 2 or Op 1?
Op 1. The one where we
Op
pulled
1, I
into
was on the defending
compound.
side. I thought you were talking about
Yeah.
Op 2 with the final attack.
No. Op 1, where we pulled the guys into circular defense in that little
Oh yeah, we were
compound.
fucked. That was
Yeah,
horrible.
we were absolutely boned. There was like 16 of us, and I believe something like 50 or 60 attackers. But that force of 16 men in that compound, we destroyed the attacking company,
God damn.
including their vehicles. We held our corners basically inside this compound, and as they came in, the attacker was exposed to fire from the 2-story building as well as every other building in the compound. And there was just no way he could take it. And he kept butting his head into the compound up until the point that his company was gone. And he was dealing with basically a mass cast of 20 people after his attack. And that was big war feels to me. That was a good feeling.
At the very end of that, the very death throes of that first op that night was an attack on the final compound where the attackers still had their numerical advantage and then some, and mechanized assets. And I died early on in this defense, but the rest of them were maybe a squad and a half of smattered infantry just defending this one building. The only reason the attackers didn't just steamroll them is because they were so hesitant. They kept taking little pokes.
My perspective of that situation was I was actually inside this 2-story building, hiding in a staircase, like underneath a staircase. My platoon medic was bringing in casualties from the outside, and he was doing CPR on these guys and trying to keep them alive. Meanwhile, on the other side of the wall, I'm hearing people speak Swedish.
A terrifying feeling.
I had a conversation with the enemy through the wall. I recognized a player from AnRap called Alejandro. I heard his voice. So I called out to him, Alejandro, is that you? And it just goes, Sphere, is that you? So nice to see you again. I brought friends. And I just kind of post up in a window with my rifle. I'm like, all right, well, let's make it a party. Bring your friends. And they all come around the corner and we have a gunfight. I win. I win the gunfight.
Oh, wow.
But it was probably one of the better TVTs we've played, just because of the unexpected end result. I was fully expecting to die the moment that hand grenades started coming in through the windowsills, but we didn't somehow. Big war feels.
Yeah.
I took an RPG to the back of the head. That's how I died.
I think one of my
what it
favorite
takes
things
to kill a whale.
sort of something I can relate to the Sphere. We've only done it once, but mixed language operations are a very silly thing that only really happens in ArmA, as far as I know. And we did it intentionally. What we did was, if you've ever heard of Operation Gunnercide, or Operation Freshman, I believe it was the other one.
I've heard of Gunnercide.
It was a commando raid in World War II onto Norway, where they were trying to destroy the heavy water the Germans were producing there. And the first one went terribly, and they all got executed by the Nazis. Long story. Second one went great. They parachuted in, blew it up, and they escaped. So we were playing an alt history of the first one, where we linked up with the Norwegian resistance, and we moved onto the plant, we blew it up, and we escaped. And what actually we had was we have a lot of Swedish players in the unit. So what we did was we got all the Swedish players to play as the resistance members, and only one of them was allowed to translate Swedish to English. So we had this
they were
operation.
Supposed to be Norwegian, right?
They were supposed to be Norwegian, but here's the thing.
Yeah, same thing.
No one can tell the difference. And there was one Norwegian there who spoke Norwegian, and I put his subtitles in as Dovahkiin's Skyrim language instead. And I had the Swedish as the actual Swedish language. I had worked with the guys on the video. I got them to translate in real time as I was like the subtitles in the video were in Swedish. So not even like the viewer knew what the Swedes were actually saying. It was a seriously fun operation. It was just a very a different sort of situation that we had there, and I just think it's very funny to sort of have that, because that's something that, you know, only really European sort of units get. Everyone else in the world, you know, we're all English or specific language units. So yeah.
Yeah, I think in other games they would just tell them to speak English, but in ArmA, in a game with these TVTs, you have a unique opportunity. Before we go to the next topic, though,
you want to mention Babel?
How many well, there's Babel. Yeah, you could plug Acre for a second, talk about Babel, but no, we don't need it. Severe, how many Americans show up for those AFI ops?
Well, there's a few. Primarily, our American guests are from the remnants of United Operations. But there's also a group called SOG that shows up a lot. They're primarily American and Canadian.
So you say like 10ish?
Probably, 10 to 15.
Just imagine that, being an American in an operation full of Europeans, Finnish, Swede. there's a French unit that shows up, I think, sometimes, and it's just, I feel like a fish out of water.
The Greeks once showed up. That was a curiosity, because they didn't speak great English either. But tell you what though, you point at something and go, kill that, and those guys go do that.
Yeah, that's sort of the fun we had. Obviously, like the Swedes in our op were pretending to not know English, but it was still fun. Where I was just like explosive, point, run, explosive, as we're like running because we've just planted the bombs in the factory. As a Panzer rolled up the road, it was so much fun. The funniest thing that I didn't even realize at the time is I believe explosive is actually Norwegian for explosive. I was just shouting it strangely. I didn't even know, and I googled it afterwards, and apparently that's actually the word. So
I also I have to issue a correction really quickly.
Yeah.
I said it was Alacandero who came around the corner, but no. I know he's gonna have my head for this because I keep mistaking him for Trub. But here's a picture of the situation from Trub's perspective as he comes around the corner. I put it in the Discord.
Yeah, I'll grab it for the video itself.
Yeah.
I just want to see it.
Grab it for the video.
Oh my god.
But you can see the situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, the multiple languages and cultures thing, participating in ArmA is definitely one of the reasons I play with AFI. With groups like, let's say, Coalition, so far what I've experienced is monoculture of, well, I shouldn't say monoculture because there's members from all over the world in Coalition. But in AFI, when you show up to a big event, you've got multinationals in there. And that's actually something you have to plan for as well on the organizational level, is that one of your platoons is going to be speaking a different language than your other platoon.
I love that.
That's been something I've had to deal with for the past 2 years. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any different. It's a lot more interesting than just, making a plan for an outfit that speaks the same language entirely. And it's making all of those little parts work together. It makes it interesting to me.
No, I 100% agree. There is a nicety to having variation in what you command as well. Like recently, I did a Napa operation where we were basically our mobility and our like equipment was all technicals, and we had just a group of armed villagers with us who I made use of. It was a very fun operation by the end. I think that was one of my favorite operations I've recently done. And NATO Alive was overhead. That's actually that's a great thing to quickly touch on. Was NATO's like alive jets combined with Drongos. We actually had zero control over them, but we got some big war feels because I saw an A-10 fly overhead, and in the video I literally beg, I'm like, why won't you fucking help us? Because we are getting fucked. The Chidakis are just slaughtering us in this town. Our tank's just being blown up. We've got I'm next to someone who's lost all of their blood. It's horrible. And this A-10 flies overhead. I'm like, you fucking help us. About 3 minutes later, I'm taking cover in a trench, and I hear just boom, 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 boom. I'm like, shit, people report, what the fuck is all that? And then I look overhead, and the A-10 is swooping down and strafing the Jadakis in the town. AI, by the way, that is a NATO AI has ordered his plane using Drongos and Alive to just come help us. We had zero control in them doing that. And I was just like, praise the gods of fire support. That was fucking amazing. It was so cool. So much fun. But yeah, is there anything else you want to touch on there, Whale? Otherwise, I think we want to step on to the next question.
We could go right on. I think that about sums it up for me. As far as talking about playing versus winning, as far as talking about our favorite roles to go on in ArmA. I suppose we want to wheel back, and this won't take long.
Yeah.
Maybe for the people listening, it'd be nice if we talk about if we've ever had an experience with force multipliers, tanks, or jets. Because people are interested in that for sure, and they might feel like it wasn't discussed whatsoever.
That's fair.
Have you guys ever sat in those seats?
Oh yeah, all the time. I think. Fuck, I'm trying to think like specific. The problem is I've recently not done as much. I sit in tanks and stuff more as a commander than I do as a as an actual tanker. Like I sit in as a command tank, or I use a tank as cover to give me a nice little office that can't be shot at, sort of thing.
You give them one of those. Hey, open up. Let me in.
Yeah, one of those. Yeah, it's one of those things in ArmA where I think the vehicle simulation is reasonable. Okay. Okay, here's something that this is a whole topic I could go into. Maybe we do save this for another day, because I could go into heavily how shit ArmA's vehicle simulation actually is, and how good it is, and how like the goods and bads of it, sort of what do you call it? The sort of the way it functions, in comparison to other games. I really feel like that's a whole other topic for another day.
On what episode will the upvote reach us?
Shit, I'm gonna have to turn on persistence for that. I haven't actually got that set up. I need to go.
Shit.
Well, I should have that next week. Yeah.
Going back to the tanks bit again, my experience with tanks is limited. The only thing more limited is my experience with jets. In regards to tanks, I have commanded tank platoons in ArmA, in TVTs. Probably my most fun experience was fighting against the weekly open games and Tushino guys. They are a Russian community, and we did a big TVT against them. We got our asses handed to us, by the way. I'm just putting it out there immediately. The Russians go hard, but it was a really fun fight. We had a half platoon of tanks, T-72s, and it was an enlightening experience because the enemy was primarily mechanized and armored as well. So there was a lot more moving around on the field than just other tanks. So you had light vehicles, trucks, BMPs primarily, which is how the enemy company maneuvered. And there's a clip on Twitch and YouTube of the AFI tank platoon coming into contact with the enemy mechanized element. And probably my best performance in a tank so far in this game. We knocked out 4 BMPs in, I think it was, or was it 3 BMPs in 25 seconds, including the infantry that came with them. And then we swallowed an anti-tank missile and were destroyed ourselves.
Yeah.
But it was that's ArmA. You spend all this time on preparation and maneuvering
and then it blows up in 30 seconds.
Yeah. In 30 seconds or less, it's gone. But we did get to whip a mechanized platoon. We still lost the game, but we sure whipped that platoon.
Yeah. Something kind of weird with tanks it's true of anything past like World War II or even like Vietnam settings is you're a powerful thing in the battlefield right up until an anti-tank guided missile sees you. And an anti-tank guided missile can come from fucking anything. It can come from a Polaris with a fucking Titan strapped to the top. It can come from a BMP. What's those shitty BMPs that have like the missile strapped to the cannon? It's like on the rail. It looks so dumb. Yeah, it's nuts.
You're in a tank,
case,
so you're probably not going to see it either.
In this case, the missile came from an enemy tank. The Eastern Bloc
Oh
tanks
yeah,
have the
of course they
ability
can
to
fire ATGMs.
missiles.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. That's so much fun.
Effectively, what happened as we came into contact with the mechanized company, platoon. We started engaging them. The Russians realized, hey, our BMPs are getting fucking shellacked, and they sent their tanks around our side, and then rode up this like low rolling hill, and they set up an ambush underneath the hill. They didn't come and try and shoot us in the side. Instead, they waited for us to maneuver, and they basically predicted correctly from map features alone that our platoon was going to detach from the contact by moving through this area. And as we came over the hilltop, basically at point blank range for an anti-tank missile anyway, from 300, 400 meters away, they destroyed both our tanks.
Damn.
It was intense. Like I said, the Russians go hard, so that was a cool experience.
Yeah, no, I think there's definitely a lot more I can go into tanks and such, but it's one of those things where that's a whole other topic. I think just talking about like the different roles of vehicles and operations and their limitations and such, that's a topic for another day. But I think do you want to go into the actual next question then, or
Sure.
We're an
Let's
hour
go
30
ahead.
in, but I'll cut off. We got like 20 minutes cut off because of the stupid starting. Actually, it's more like 10.
That's fair.
So I think we'll roll for 2 hours today, which is good.
Yeah, we're gonna go for 2 hours. If it goes to 2:30, I'll throw a bad frag, and that's when we know it's really over.
No, we're not going to do 30. Even that's a little far for me. We want to keep
save
these...
it for the last episode. Okay.
All right, we want to keep this contained because again, that's the point of this podcast: is we don't want to overrun, talk for 6 hours, make 300 episodes, then no one can keep up, and it's not focused, and we're just rambling. We don't want to have that.
Okay. So speaking of focus, hey Severe, what got you into ArmA, and have you had any notable experiences with your first ever unit, no matter how small?
Okay. All right. So I touched briefly at the beginning about VBS, but that wraps into my compulsory military service, which isn't all that interesting, and I'm not here to talk.
I think it's really interesting, actually. Talking
Well,
about
I mean, okay.
VBS, ArmA, that's
So,
pretty cool.
Basically, to crystallize it, a couple of my friends, the Finnish army uses VBS to simulate things. This was at the point where it was still kind of really experimental. In 2014, it was being brought up to the national level.
Just quickly step in.
Okay.
So in case anyone isn't aware, because we're just talking about it, VBS is basically ArmA 3, or it was ArmA 2 as well, but specifically for the military. So Bohemia Interactive is actually two different companies. There's two dev teams, basically. One is in Czechoslovakia and is the simulation team. I don't know where the actual Bohemia Interactive is. BI is is ArmA, and BIS is VBS. Basically, VBS is only for militaries. I believe they rent it out or whatever. And
they have a license program.
License, yeah. And they specifically, you do training on VBS for actual militaries.
Right.
And then you've got the other company, BI, as their own lads.
So for the record, VBS stands for Virtual Battle Space.
Yes.
And like Rimmy said, it's a military simulator, not a commercial simulator. But anyway, so my dealings with VBS were very limited. Some of my friends, when they did military service along with me, they went to Parlanummi, which is a place in Finland, where the armored brigade, in fact the only armored brigade in the country, was doing the VBS program. And this was at the point where the VBS program was very, very, very early stages. Nowadays it's been expanded. Almost every military outfit and brigade level unit in Finland exercises with VBS. I'm not entirely sure on my English terminology here, so forgive me if I make mistakes. But nowadays it's a big thing. But that was my first contact with the ArmA engine. I'd been familiar with Operation Flashpoint before when I was a kid. So I knew that, when I saw it, I knew, wait a second, this looks familiar. After that was over, I picked up ArmA because I was curious about what I could do, because I'd already been interested in wargaming ever since I was a kid. So ArmA was the natural expansion in the civilian world into what I wanted to do with this as a hobby. Basically, my first ever unit was, I believe it was called not entirely sure, but it was an American outfit, and it was maybe 10 or 15 people, and we did like really niche special forces stuff.
What year was this? Curious.
This was in like probably fucking late 2014 and stretching into early 2015, and I found ArmA Finland through those guys, or rather I found it while browsing ArmA related media, and that's when I bumped into other Finnish ArmA groups like Kyllikki or Finnish Jaeger troops and stuff like that. I never played with those guys. I ended up in ArmA Finland straight away, but in a way ArmA Finland was my first proper contact surface to what I wanted to do in ArmA. So I consider ArmA Finland my first outfit in that sense.
That's fair.
And you asked what was my most defining experience with that outfit. Is that
Or
what you
notable.
said? Or
Any
noticeable?
notable experiences?
So probably the most notable experience actually in ArmA Finland does not have to do with ArmA. Rather, the privilege of living in such a small country and in such a geographically contained area is that we can all physically visit each other. So we went to an event called Battle Group 19, or in Finnish Taisteluosasto 19. Not expecting anybody to understand that, but the Finns in the chat will know what that is.
If
Probably, if there are any Finns, I don't expect there to be any Finns at 2 a.m. But it's a Milsim/Airsoft event that takes place in central Finland, and ArmA Finland went there as a company-sized force, and we got one platoon that was full of people from ArmA Finland, and then another platoon that was full of guys from another community who did exclusively Milsim, LARP, Airsoft stuff. And we got to do what we did in ArmA
in the
and
real
apply
world.
apply some of that in the real world. But let's be real, it was basically just a bunch of people hanging out by a platoon tent, eating sausage and drinking beer. So that was, but I really liked seeing my friends that I've played with for years in ArmA Finland and getting to see them face to face.
Yeah.
That was probably my most memorable experience from ArmA Finland. And that kind of sucks because it's not even about an ArmA game, right?
No,
I could have.
I still feel
could have
like
come
that's
up
relevant.
I think it's
I
fun.
could have
I
come
think it's
up
a fun
with
story.
some sort of fantastic war story, but the thing that makes ArmA Finland important to me is the people I've met in it. People
I mean,
like,
I honestly agree there. The community in ArmA, like you get to know people quite well. It's really important. You know, it's like there's people I've played with PlanetSide who I used to play with like groups in PlanetSide. I can't remember any of their names. Like I was never in like a bloody big unit or anything. I just play with like platoons and stuff. I don't know who the fuck they are. Like I can't remember their names, but I remember a lot of the people I used to play ArmA with. It's a lot more of a what do you call it? More of a personable thing. People's personalities stand out a lot more in ArmA.
Yeah, and it was that's the strange part about that experience is that you learn to associate people with certain things they do, their personalities and stuff like that, and then you meet them in person, and you're, especially at an event like Battle Group 19 where you're doing the stuff that you're doing in game. I have a friend in ArmA Finland called Taltsi, and Taltsi he's a reservist mortarman in the realsies.
Hey, it's Paul.
And,
sorry, you don't get that.
And
it's a mate
we
of ours that just
also
came back from Lithuania. He was in the conscripts.
I have to tell this story because it's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
We have a guy called Nurmi as well, and Nurmi obviously goes hand in hand with Tatsi because he's an indirect fire observer. Also a pretty good in-game leader for ArmA Finland. But Nurmi was there at Battle Group 19 and he did indirect fire observation and stuff for us while he was actually active service. He had specifically gone on leave and used up his weekend furlough to come play with us at Battle Group 19,
God damn.
which was really cool of him. Not sure. I'm pretty sure, like, if his immediate commanding officers would have heard about that, they would have given him a pat on the back, like, "Wow, you went from active service in the military to your weekend furlough to LARPA soldier at a fucking Milsim event. That's my boy."
Taking the weekend off to do your job. It's like the truck drivers
Yeah,
who play
yeah,
Euro
basically.
Truck.
Yeah, but seeing those people operate together just like they operate in the game, that was fantastic. And we gave some of the more experienced outfits at Battle Group 19 a run for their money. We didn't win the game, but I wouldn't trade any of even some of the more bitter losses in the field that day for any of the things that I experienced with my guys. Like, if I had to pick between winning and being there with those guys, I'd pick being there with those guys 1,000 times over.
Yeah.
That was my most defining experience with ArmA Finland, making friends.
You're making me a jealous motherfucker, man, because I've all through this quarantine, I've been constantly planning to go to different Milsims events. In Australia, we have Gel Ball. I have a full Russian kit. I've got like an actual uniform and the wooden metal AK. It's an AKM, but that's one of my favorite things. I still have Americans on my video. I was playing Halo and I showed my guys my Gelsoft gun. I'm like, look at this, it's cool. I can shoot my friends with it. And Americans like,
But it's Gelsoft.
look at the man with the fake gun. I'm like, yeah, but I can't.
Something like that.
I can't shoot my friends with a real gun, you fucking morons. Well, I don't know. Depends what school you go to. So it was.
Whoa, that's a damn.
It's look, it's a case of just like I was just there being like, I like this thing. I'm gonna go play some cool fucking Milsims in the bush with my mates. And Americans in the comments just like, I own an AR-15. I think you'll find. I'm like, okay, I don't care. It's like I'm here to go and have fun with my friends in the woods and fucking hunt down each other, because I was a paintball marshal for a while like that, and that shit, even as a marshal, was fun. One of the actually, this is something I can sort of relate to ArmA and relate to that about sort of how you compare your ArmA experience to playing was it Battle Force, was it? Sorry, shit, Battle. Oh god, I've
Battle Group.
Battle Group, that's it.
Right.
So as a paintball marshal, one of the things we sort of had to do and sort of encouraged to do was we would basically, apart from we'd give general tips and tricks on this is what you do to win this game sort of thing. But what we would actually do is we would get all the shit scared people, the people who'd been dragged along by their friends and who were cowering behind a bunker, just crying their eyes out because they were afraid of getting shot and they hadn't shot their gun in the last 20 minutes. What our job was we'd go up to these people and we'd grab them and we'd be like, all right, mate, you see that next bunker? And they're like, yeah. It's like, we're going. And we grab them, we start running with them. And we shield them with our bodies because we're the marshals. And it's cheating, yeah. But these guys were never going to win. They're never going to make the difference in the first place. But that was the sort of the DM sort of command moment where we sort of, when we see a side is losing or we see a side is full of people who don't know how to play paintball or are terrified of getting shot at, we just sort of fucking come on, let's go. And we start dragging them forwards and, and we get them to shoot. We go, look, there's a guy there, shoot at him. And even if they miss, that's, we're getting them in there and stuff. And so, we sort of put a lot of that command experience towards that. And I mean, I got my job after one game of paintball. After my game of paintball, the guy the manager walked up and he's like, hey, do you want to work here? I'm like, oh, okay. Because he called me over, he's like, the manager wants to speak. I'm like, oh shit, did I fuck up? And he's like, were you the guy with the green hair who who crawled over the trench with a bomb in hand?
Were you the one screaming at children?
Yeah, and I was like, were you the one, because what I did is I'd left my paintball gun behind and I crawled on my fucking belly over this little bridge to arm the bomb to win the game. And people were trying to shoot me from all sides, and I was just dragging myself across these rocks to get the bomb across because no one had gotten it across. And luckily I had green hair at the time, so he just pulls me out of the line and he goes the manager wants to speak to you, and he goes, yeah, we saw you pull that little stunt, do you want to work here? I was like, fuck yeah. I was still doing YouTube at the time, but it was just a fun thing to do. And I'll be honest, I miss it. I don't miss the dickhead manager who came in. I just quit the job the day he came in. There's like a regional manager that came in, and he's like, he was a cunt. He was a regional manager who like stepped in because we were one of the most profitable fields, so he wanted to like take direct control of the field. And this guy was a cunt, like the worst. He came in and had a full big go at me about like, this is how you succeed in business, all right? If you don't do this, you'll never succeed in business. And I'm sat there like, mate, I make as much money as you do, and I play video games for a living. I'm like, you pay me to have fun at this field. I go to this field to work, but I'm here to have fun. Like, if you weren't paying me, I'd still be coming. The only thing that made me stop going to that field and stop working as a marshal was that dude showing up. I'm like, yeah, I'm not putting up with this dickhead every day, and so I just quit.
It sounds like a contrast too. Your immediate manager, it seems like a cool guy. If he was doing a cool,
my immediate manager was
you.
fucking amazing. That guy is through and through a brilliant person. I am sad that I had to stop working with him. He actually did a paintball milsim. He used to be a professional paintballer. Super cool guy, very very good. He did a paintball milsim with the British military, where they had actual helicopters and tanks and actual British army, and he was with them, and because obviously he was professional. And they would fly it. I think it was in like Scotland or somewhere. Like it was up north of Britain.
That's like some Milsim West shit. Wow.
Yeah,
fake tanks. Well, fake real tanks.
It was real tanks, but using paintball shit and such. And it was real helicopters and real pilots flying real soldiers, but they were just using paintball bullets. I believe the
Simunitions. Simunitions is the term.
I don't. Is simunition it's the ones that are like the paintball bullets. They actually fire and you can get hit by them. So that's a term for them. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, listen, like that shit, that guy, fucking amazing. He hit me up on Facebook a while back. I was like, hey man, how you doing? He picked up a bloody computer. He's playing some like Halo and shit now, I think. So good guy, through and through, loving bits. That was a great guy. I was so happy to work with him. Fuck that regional manager. I wish I was still working there. Anyway, fuck, that was a detour and a half.
What got you into ArmA, Rimmy?
Nah, you start off. I've talked too much. I've talked too much.
Okay, I'll give your chops a break. What got me into ArmA? Well, I noticed it was free one day, and I think I just snagged it. I was a bright-eyed little kid. I saw CTI where I could like RTS a bunch of AI that would actually listen to my squeaker voice, and I did for a while. It was CTI. After that, I don't remember who first told me about it. I don't remember where I first found it, but my first unit was Fantac, which was some ShackTac clone run by Yanni. Well, there's quite a story there, and we only have about 20 minutes, so maybe I'll save it for another day.
Yeah,
because it is a long one. It is a chunky one. It is also a great one. But if I had to describe another, maybe briefer, notable experience with the unit, this was the Wild West of ArmA 3. Things were just rolling. It was 2015-ish, 16-ish, maybe earlier. But either way, their missions were a little off the cuff. And that meant sometimes mission makers could slip in things and not tell anybody. Like, for example, velociraptors into a jungle operation at night.
God,
and also, the mission maker didn't intend this, but it happened some way, somehow. And you know what? Sometimes the admins in that unit didn't tell people everything, so maybe it was intentional. But the radios broke that op, and they broke completely. So we were in the jungle. On this map called, I think it was a GOS map, the jungle one they have that's like West Africa. Either way.
No, that's not it. Go on.
I think it was Nziwasogo.
Yes, that one. Yep.
I actually like that one. It's not fitting for ArmA 3, but back in the day it was decent enough. And it has these ambient monkeys in your ear that are really loud. So we were hearing screaming monkeys. We were hearing screaming people. We're walking through this dark jungle illuminated only by lightning flashes and our flashlights. And everything's calm as we're, it's kind of a suspicious briefing. It's like, go up to this research base and examine what the scientists found and then get out of here. And it's like, okay, well, I guess just some insurgents, clearly. The only surging was us seeing the frontline guy, I think, squad leader that really wanted to be right at the tip of the spear, get literally jumped on by a velociraptor and torn to shreds. Not by the velociraptor so much as by us all immediately dumping the velociraptor and also him under the velociraptor, of course, with full mags and then a reload and then another mag as the velociraptor stayed on him. And he was turned into some odd kind of cheese.
I have an exact story about that.
There was one other thing in that op before I send it off here. Another experience in that very same op was later on. My final stand was stealing. We were whittled down to maybe one squad by then. I stole a off-road that had an HMG on the back myself, and I volunteered. I said, okay, you guys are not going to make it the extra 400 meters to the helicopter unless someone makes a distraction for all the Velociraptors. So I'm going to drive it up to the edge of the beach. I'm going to turn the HMG around, and I'm just going to hold down the trigger until they come, after they come, and once I'm dead. You guys just run through the jungle. And they did. And I did. And what ended up happening was I ran out of ammo before I died. And I also couldn't depress the gun enough anymore because the pile of Velociraptor bodies under the off-road was sticking the gun up into the air. I think it was because they couldn't attack me so well while I was in that back seat, but they still did some damage, and eventually I succumbed. But that was a really fun ArmA experience. And it was coincidentally with the first unit, so I guess it counts, even if it's not like meta ArmA drama stuff. But off to you, Rimmy. What were you going to say?
Was with my SOCOM lads. There was one of Sharky's specials, as we used to call them. But he snuck the mod in, that same Velociraptor mod, which is jank as shit, by the way. It only does damage in vanilla damage.
It also just got an update this week.
Is it fixed? Yeah, we'll talk about that another time, off air. But he snuck it into our mod pack by renaming it F16. So we went, oh look, we have to download a new mod. It's the F16 mod. And what it actually was zombies and Velociraptor. And so we sort of started... Yeah, we started fighting zombies, and we're like, because we've done zombies before. We're like, hey, good job, you got us. And so we fought through some like regular guys. We fought through some zombies. We link up this base, and then there's cargo containers in this base, and we start hearing like this, like dunk dunk dunk, dunk dunk. We're like, what the fuck's going on? And then the cargo containers open, and fucking Velociraptors just emerge, and it was insane. We fucking, we were flooring it. It was like a running gunfight with these Velociraptors. Eventually, we got down to, we got to the docks of this river, and we were waiting for these boats to rescue us. And we were at the end of the docks, just, forming a fucking, a final firing line as we're holding off against the Velociraptors, launching rockets and machine guns and shit. And, as the front guys start to fall, the rear guys turn and just jump into the water and, swim for freedom as the Velociraptors, eat the people on land. It was fucking amazing. And jank as shit. The fact is that it was jank as shit, but I remember it in rosy-colored sort of there was definitely no horrible lag and awful jank and Velociraptors teleporting and all that sort of shit. But yeah, to go to the actual question, what got me into ArmA? I couldn't tell you. It is my memory is fucking shot through and through, but I think I just picked up the game at a store like EB Game when I was a kid. I was like, oh look, a video game, and I think I
copy that.
Yeah, I think it was either that or my cousin got me into it. I can't remember, because I often as a kid I used to go to my cousin's house, play games with him, and then that's how I knew what games I wanted to go buy. I think I might have just got it at EB Games, and I played it through, and I played the campaign loads. That ArmA 2's campaign, Harvest Red, is one of the best campaigns for a game ever. It is so well done, and there is branching choices and story. It has got more actual choices in it than a fucking Walking Dead, telltale visual novel. I shit you not. That game is so well done. Comparing it to the campaign of ArmA 3 was honestly depressing. ArmA 3 is good, and I like the campaigns in ArmA 3. There's some really good stuff there. But they completely threw out the choice and the sort of the variations that ArmA 2 had to offer. The third mission of ArmA 2 involves a whole scene where you're fighting in Chernogorsk, right? And you can actually just fuck up the mission entirely. There's a thing where it's oh shit, we need help, a sniper's attacking us. And you can either not get there in time, or the sniper can get killed by friendly forces who happen to kill him. And there's all different branching story paths depending on what happens in these situations. And there's 8 different endings. It's amazing. So I played that for ages, and I used to play the editor, and I used to set up zombie missions in the editor, and it was just me and my cousin, and I used to play capture the island, all that sort of stuff. And eventually, my cousin got my squeaker ass into, I think it was the 97th Ranger Regiment. And our first ever operation, we played the real big dick thing back in the day was MCC. Do you guys remember that at all?
MCC Sandbox? Missions?
Yeah, the sandbox. Yeah. The one that lets you sort of control the mission in the mission, which, because Zeus at the time didn't exist. It wasn't a thing in ArmA. Once you started a mission, that was it. And MCC was sort of the way to Zeus-ish a mission. It was interesting. But there was also a mode of MCC, which is like, it was persistent, kind of like Alive, where it would remember what happened from, like, op to op. So, what this unit we played with had was, like, we were in, I think it was Takistan. I think this was after Operation Arrowhead. And basically, every thing we did was saved from operation to operation. So if people just, like, if, like, 4 dudes went on a patrol and, like, set up a fob, it would stay there. Or if they, like, killed some insurgents in the town, the game would remember, oh, those insurgents are dead, sort of thing. I don't know if you guys ever played that sort of, that game mode. I thought it was fascinating back in the day. But I remember I went on my first ever patrol, and it was me, my cousin, some other guy, and, like, a senior officer guy, right? And they're, like, running us through everything. We're driving a Humvee up the road. And suddenly he slams the brakes. He goes, shit, IED. We pile out of the car. And my little fucking, like, 13-year-old brain is going, oh, fuck, oh, shit, oh, God. And I do the only thing I can think of. I attack the IED. So
how did that go?
Well, actually, here's the thing. I thought that we were moments from that IED exploding and killing us. And my fucking stupid child brain just goes, the only thing that can stop that IED from killing us is if I kill it first. So I shoot my M16 at the IED, it explodes, blows up our Vic, like, destroys the wheels, wounds all our guys. And to their credit, the guy running the thing was just like, well, we can take that as a learning experience. And I still remember the fucking embarrassment. And he's like, we'll take that as a learning experience. We'll carry on the op as if we hit the IED. Had we just not shot the IED, we could have disarmed the thing. We were like fucking 15 meters back from it. It wasn't going to set off. We were so far away. But I shot it and the shrapnel got us. So I just fucked us. And so I was so fucking embarrassed the rest of that. But I had good fun with those guys. And we had some really good times. And yeah,
I mean,
they sort of...
just...
Go on.
That's just ArmA, right? Like,
yeah.
Sometimes that shit happens.
It's just kind of like, I was impressed, me knowing what I know now and having run an op now, and like, we have a strict 18 plus limit, we let everyone know that, it's in all the documents, and we still have 12-year-olds and 14-year-olds and 16-year-olds apply. You know, it's just like, we still have people asking, I had people DM me, be like, hey, I know it says the age limit, but can I have an exception? I'm like, no, you can't. And there is a very good reason as to why. I know this because I was the kid who said, oh, I'm very mature for my age. No one's very mature for their age. Yeah, there is no one who's mature for their age. It's something I just, yeah, something I can't do. And I have respect for those guys for letting me play, but I cannot do that myself. I don't know how the hell they put up with me, because I was a piece of shit kid. But I after that, so I went from playing, like, I used to play all sorts of games as a kid. I spent a straight year, and I'm not even joking, like, there was 12 straight months where I did nothing but played ArmA 2. That was the only game I booted up and played. I didn't play any other game. And, like, this is
how many hours you got?
Oh, easily over 1,000. But remember, this is, like, as a kid as well. Like, I wasn't able to I was playing with one unit. I played their ops, and I played in the editor and you know, multiplayer on my own time. It was easily over 1,000. I was still in I was in late primary, early secondary during that time.
And for Americans, what age is that?
Oh, so it'd be like 12 to 14 was around about there. It was somewhere around there. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So primary school ends when you're 12.
Now?
I'm 21.
You're 21.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So I left high school 3 years ago, 18. And I started Acadian a year and a half ago now, I think, almost exactly. So, yeah, and so that's the thing as well, is ArmA 2 wasn't on Steam for a long time. I played it all off Steam, so I've got no idea how long I actually played. I did play the shit out of Operation Arrowhead, and I think I might have played that on Steam, I can't recall. But that shit was just, oof, that was my childhood for me for a long time. So yeah, that sort of stuff built up. And then to talk about the 97th Ranger story thing, that group fell apart to drama because people got accused of hoarding funds for the donations of the server funds. There was like an over donation. You know, we had 110% one month. We're like, oh great, that goes 10% to the next month. And then the server owner was like, no, I'm taking the 10%. And then there was a huge fucking like fight. And then that unit fell apart, and then we created another unit, and then that unit fell apart, and then they created another unit, and so on and so forth. ArmA drama is, I think, something we absolutely have to talk about another week. Because I believe
Hours.
That wraps
The
it up.
circle of life, bro.
The circle of life. Man, all I'm going to say is whenever I decide the Caden XX it's time to come, I'm just burning it to the fucking ground, telling no one, delete everything in one day. And just like fucking Braun did with OBG, just wipe
One day the
fucking
Discord's
records. Yeah.
And the next day it's just like, where'd it go?
Just fucking delete it all and tell no one that it is time. No. So I think if anyone last things to touch on, we'll wrap up the official podcast here, and then we'll do the after show sort of questions from chat, the alerts, and that after show, just for those watching on YouTube, will go up on the second channel because it's going to be just a little bit too long. So anything to touch on, lads?
Well, we could talk about ages and ArmA units. I'll write that down.
What that's stuff to like. I'm talking about like wrapping up topics, like any final words, not fresh topics to talk about, you bastard. Because we could go on forever.
Whale is prepared to open up another lecture.
My name is Whale, and this is your regularly scheduled Bad Frag. I hope you had fun listening to it.
Indeed. Anything else, Severe?
It was a lot of fun sitting down with you guys and actually getting to do this. I was really anxious in the beginning because, to be honest, I'm not a YouTuber. I'm not a Twitch streamer.
Neither's Whale.
And I just at the beginning I opened up the.
I'm sorry, that was very mean. That was very mean of me.
Right. That was a low blow.
Yeah.
You saw your opportunity and you took it, but so I opened up the Twitch stream in the beginning. I'm like, all right, I'm probably gonna be like 30 or 40 viewers, and I look and there's like 400. Stage fright, bro. Stage fright. But
it's fine. You've done very good.
It was actually good fun getting to do this.
This is seriously fun, and I think Severe is the perfect co-host for us because we've got Whale the Village Bicycle, myself, who I'm very much I control all stuff I do. You know, I run my
Village Bicycle.
My
you
unit
just had to go out and say it.
Is my unit. And then we've got Severe, who is the TVT fucking mastermind wargamer. So like he's a whole other. We've got a spectrum of people here. But next I
was gonna say.
I won't say next week. Probably either 2 weeks. Depends if we really want to do it next week. If we're just so excited. We're aiming for 1 to 2 a month after all. So because I don't want to flood everything too quickly. But next time we have this podcast, we will be bringing along a guest of some kind. We have, of course, 6 seats, though we intend to aim for 4 or 5 people at most. So that way we can cover everything. So yeah, if there's anything else to touch on, I think we can wrap it up there.
What? I got some important.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Where's the bunny?
Oh yeah, Vince, here's the weird thing about Vince. He actually can open doors with his mind, I noticed during testing. Is he, hang on. Is he out front? Okay, let me stand up, here we go. He's not... Oh no! I think Vince may have.
He hasn't opened the door either.
Yeah, no, I don't know. He may be hiding under the table or something. No, there's just Whale's hat under the table. There we go. All right, I believe we'll wrap it up. Let's take our seat again, and I'll remember to enable persistence for next time. You just leaving the door open. Disgusting. What, were you born in a barn, Whale?
The fresh to no one air. I can't believe you don't appreciate.
Well, look at all these windows.
You ever been to a tropical island, Rimmy, in real life?
I mean, I've been to Queensland, so yeah.
No, Australia does not count as a tropical
island.
island.
Have you been to Queensland? You go to Queensland, you step outside, it's like you've just had a shower. It's that fucking humid. Anyway, we'll wrap it up here.
Anyway.
Thank you all for watching Bad Frag. For those of you at YouTube, it's called Aftershow will be on the second channel. Otherwise, have a good day. Goodbye. All right. Well, thanks, Whale. Thanks.
I had to give him a little wave.